Hello, and welcome back to Christendom Ministry for our series, Crafting a Personal Witness Talk, a guide for Catholic teens. My name is Xander, and today we're going to talk about feedback to feed forward. But before we do that, be sure to go and check out the other videos that we've done in this series so far. And now moving forward, right, you have a talk, you have something written, maybe it's complete, maybe it's not, and you're ready for some feedback. So let's do it. Fundamentally, at the core, feedback is really just a response or commentary to your talk, so as to improve it and make it better. And it's also important to note that this feedback should be positive and constructive, because it doesn't really help when someone just looks at your talk and goes, yeah, it just needs some work. Really, be a little more specific. And lastly, it's important to note that feedback can come in multiple forms. So you can send a document to someone and they can type up a response or some commentary on it, or you can have a conversation with someone one-on-one, or just sitting in a circle with friends, bouncing ideas off of one another for your talks. But I just tend to prefer the interpersonal ways of feedback, because it's in those conversations that we discover new things about each other's talks, and we really just bring them to life, and we sit with them more, we pray with them more, and we can just find better ways to address our audiences. I think the best way to go about this is to pick someone that you know. Maybe it's a friend in youth group, a youth minister, a teacher, mentor, parent, priest, but just anyone that knows you and can help you better to tell your story. I used to go to one of my best friends all the time, still do, whenever I'm writing a talk and I'm like, look dude, what do you think about this? And we'll maybe chat on the phone or meet up, or he'll just email me back something, and he'll be like, okay, maybe change this, or maybe move this here. But one thing that's so important to note is that whenever people give good feedback on a personal witness talk, they're not trying to rewrite your story. Because it's your story, it's the ways that Christ has impacted you in your life, and if I'm giving my friend feedback, I can't really change that, but I can maybe say okay, maybe move this quote here, and move this Bible verse here, and it just helps the flow of the talk better, right? That's really encouraged, and within that there's specificity, and so we're actually directing our commentary towards one spot, right, as opposed to just saying the whole thing needs work, right? But also too, whenever you're seeking feedback on something, it's important to ask that person questions. To ask a person I'm really struggling in this area of the talk, or I'm really struggling the introduction, or I don't really think this claim I'm trying to make makes sense. What do you think? And that just helps the viewer lock in on a certain spot. But also, right, it's addressing certain things that you really think need to be brought up. So overall, it's just important to keep in mind this idea of feedback to feed forward when preparing to give a personal witness talk. In our first episode, we talked about preparing with prayer, and that's just allowing the Lord to give us feedback. So it's going to adoration, it's sitting in His presence, and then saying Lord, what do you think about this? Or well, what about this part? And just seeing what comes to mind. But in this stage, we're seeking feedback from other people. But also, which is kind of cool, it's a way of the Lord speaking to us through those other people. So kind of keep that in mind, feedback to feed forward. All right, so this episode concludes the section on preparation. We've talked about preparing with prayer, writing, outlining, and now feedback to feed forward. Join us next time as we dive into the delivery stage, talking all about public speaking. Thank you, and God bless.